Welcome to Topic Time. In today's topic time, the schedules in Drug and Cosmetic Act are discussed. This is an important area as far as competitive exams are concerned. Let's move on to the schedules. Schedule A is the first one. Schedule A deals with the application forms and license types. Schedule A deals with the application forms and license types. You can remember this by remembering the letter A. That is A for applications. From this AA combination, you can remember that Schedule A is related to application forms. Now coming to Schedule B. Schedule B describes the fee for test by the Central Drug Laboratories or State Drug Laboratories. For getting a service from drug laboratories, we have to pay certain amount of money. Schedule B states that amount. That is, Schedule B is related to buying a service from drug laboratories. To buy a service, we have to pay certain amount of money. Schedule B states that amount. You can remember this schedule by remembering a word buy. Buy starts with a B. This B is for Schedule B. Just remember that buy a service from drug laboratories. From the word buy, you can remember that these fees is mentioned in Schedule B. Now, going to Schedule B1. This schedule is related to the fees for the test by the Pharmacopoeia Laboratory for Indian Medicine. In short, PLIM. Pharmacopoeia Laboratory for Indian Medicine. For getting a service, actually buying a service from Pharmacopoeia Laboratory for Indian Medicine, we have to pay certain amount of money. Schedule B1 describes that amount. Schedule B1 also states the fee for test by the government analyst. For getting a test report from government analyst, we have to pay certain fee. Schedule B describes about such fee. Now going to Schedule C. This is very familiar for us. This schedule is related to the biological and special products. Actually, this is a list of biological and special product. Please remember that it is a list. List of what? list of biological and special products. Now going to Schedule C1. This is also a list. This is a list of other special products. Schedule C1 is a list of other special products. Schedule C is biological and special products. Schedule C1 is the list of other special products. Now going to Schedule D. To remember D, you remember a sentence, delivery from other country. Delivery also starts with D. D for Schedule D. So, this is related to import. Delivery from other country is import. Schedule D is related to import. Schedule D suggests the import requirements of drugs. Schedule D suggests the import requirements for drugs. You can remember it from the sentence, delivery from other country. Delivery stands for import. Delivery starts with D and it's for Schedule D. Now going to Schedule D1. This is also related to import. Actually, this schedule states about the information and undertaking required to be submitted by the manufacturer with the application form. Application form for a import registration certificate. An explanation, that is, for import of drugs, the importer has to apply for a registration certificate. While applying for a registration certificate, the importer has to file some documents. Such documents are mentioned in Schedule D. That is, Schedule D is the information that has to be submitted with the application form for import registration certificate. Now going to Schedule D2. This is also related to import. This is also information. What information? Information that has to be submitted with the application form. Which application form? Application form for the registration of a bulk drug or formulation or special product for its import into India. Here, the application is specially for the import of bulk drug or formulation or special product. For such import, the application procedure is little different. Here, the application form should be accompanied with certain other informations. Such informations are stated in the Schedule D2. So, Schedule D is related to import, out of which Schedule D1 is related to informations to be submitted along with the application, and Schedule D2 is also information that has to be submitted along with the application. Here, the difference is in Schedule D2, the application is for the registration of a bulk drug or formulation or special product. That is, for the import of bulk drug or formulation or special product. what kind of information has to be submitted. That information is mentioned in Schedule T2. Now, going to Schedule E, there is no such a schedule. Actually, in D&C Act, Schedule E is omitted. Now, going to Schedule E1. Schedule E1 is a list of poisonous substances. Poisonous substances under the Ayurvedic, Siddha and Unani systems of medicine. Poisonous substances under the Ayurvedic, Siddha and Unani system of medicine are enlisted in Schedule E1. You can remember this with a sentence. The sentence is, poisons makes a man expired. Expired means dead. Poisons make a man expired. From the word expired, you can remember Schedule E. Schedule E is for expiry. E is for expiry. When expiry happens when a man takes some poisons. From this, you can remember that Schedule E is related to poisons. Poisons under the Ayurvedic, Siddha and Unani system of medicine. So you correlate the word expired with the Schedule E. Now going to Schedule F. Schedule F has two parts, Part 12B and Part 12D. Part 12B states the requirement for blood bank. Part 12B states the requirement for blood bank. And Part 12D states the requirements for umbilical cord blood derived stem cells. That is simply stem cells. Schedule 12D states the requirements for the umbilical cord blood derived stem cells. Schedule F can be remembered from the word fast. F is for fast. Fast action is needed during emergencies. Fast need of blood is essential during emergency. You just remember fast need of blood. F is for fast and blood is for blood bank. In some other emergencies, fast need of stem cells is also there. So from that you remember Schedule F is for stem cells. That is blood bank and stem cells. Blood bank BB, stem cells SS. Both are mentioned in Schedule F. F is for fast. From these tricks, you can remember Schedule F easily. Now we are moving to Schedule F1. F1 has three parts. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Part 1 states production of vaccine. Part 2 states production of anti-sera. Part 3 states production of diagnostic agents which are of bacterial origin. Part 1 is the details about production of vaccine. Just remember that this is not a list of vaccine. List of vaccine is given in Schedule C and C1. Schedule F1 is not the list of vaccines. It's details about the production of vaccines. Similarly, Part 2 is the details about the production of anti-sera, and Part 3 is related to the production of diagnostic agents which are of bacterial origin. Now moving to Schedule F2. Schedule F2 states about the standards for surgical dressings. F2 is related to the surgical dressings. Requirements needed for surgical dressings. You can remember this from a sentence. Fear to surgery. Fear is for Schedule F. 2 is for F2. For surgery. Surgery is for surgical dressings. Just remember the sentence fear to surgery. Fear for F. 2 for F2. Surgery is for surgical dressings, which means Schedule F2 is related to the standards for surgical dressings. Don't get confused this schedule with Schedule F. Schedule F is related to umbilical cord derived stem cells. That is basically Schedule F is related to stem cells. But Schedule F3 is related to umbilical tapes. This is not stem cells or umbilical cord. This is about umbilical tapes. So don't confuse F3 with F. F is for stem cells. F3 is for umbilical tapes. Now moving to Schedule FF. Schedule FF states the standards for ophthalmic preparations. FF is for ophthalmic preparations. Ophthalmic contains a pronunciation of. FF also has the same pronunciation, ophthalmic and FF. From this, you remember that Schedule FF is for ophthalmic preparations. Just remember the pronunciation F, from which you can remember about Schedule F. Now moving to Schedule G. Schedule G is very familiar. You can see this warning on certain drugs. Which warning? That is, it is dangerous to take this preparation except under medical supervision. This warning should be written if the drug is a Schedule G drug. Then what is Schedule G? This is a list of drugs which need medical supervision. These drugs need medical supervision for administration. Generally, These are hormonal preparations. All drugs which have to be used under medical supervision are included in Schedule G. Such drugs should have a label with a warning. That warning is, it is dangerous to take this preparation except under medical supervision. You just remember a sentence, governed by RMP, that is governed by registered medical practitioner. The word governed starts with G. From that G, you can remember Schedule G. All drugs which have to be governed by RMP are included in Schedule G. Governed helps you to remember that Schedule G is for drugs which have to be used under medical supervision, governed by RMP. G for Schedule G, and RMP is for registered medical practitioner who has to supervise the treatment by using Schedule G drugs. Moving to Schedule H. This is a list of drugs which are sold in retail against the prescription of a registered medical practitioner. That is, all drugs mentioned in Schedule H cannot be dispensed over the counter. For dispensing of such drugs, prescription is essential. Prescription of a registered medical practitioner is essential. Such drugs are included in Schedule H. For remembering Schedule H, just remember a sentence, handwritten by RMP. Handwritten starts with H. That H is for Schedule H. Handwritten by RMP. That sentence helps you to remember that Schedule H drugs are dispensed in a handwritten prescription of RMP. That is, such drugs are dispensed in retail against a prescription of RMP. For remembering Schedule H, you just remember handwritten by RMP. Handwritten helps you to remember about Schedule H because handwritten starts with H. Handwritten by RMP. The whole sentence helps you to remember that these drugs are sold in retail against prescriptions. Prescriptions are handwritten by registered medical practitioner. Now moving to Schedule H1. The Schedule H1 is similar to Schedule H. The difference is this schedule contains mostly antibiotics and habit-forming drugs. Schedule H is similar to Schedule H1, that is, drugs which are sold in retail against the prescription of a registered medical practitioner. The difference between H and H1 is that in H1, the preparations are mostly hormonal preparations. but in H1, the preparations are mostly antibiotics and habit-forming drugs. Now moving to Schedule I. In D and C, Schedule I is omitted. Similar to E, I is also omitted. Now moving to Schedule J. This is a list of diseases. Which diseases? The diseases which a drug may not prevent or cure. That is, diseases which cannot be cured by using a drug. Such diseases are included in Schedule J. Uncurable diseases using drugs are included in Schedule J. You just remember that just diagnosed the disease. Just for Schedule J. Diagnosed the disease. Disease is for uncurable diseases. Just diagnosed the disease. We diagnosed the disease, but we are not able to treat the disease. So, from that sentence, you can remember Schedule J is for diseases which are not treatable by using drugs. That is, diseases which are not preventable by drugs, or drugs which are not curable by drugs. You can remember Schedule J by using just diagnosed the disease. Just starts with J, which helps you to remember about Schedule J. Diagnosed the disease. From the word disease, you can remember diseases which are not preventable or curable by using drugs. Now, Schedule K. Certain exemptions are given in Drug and Cosmetic Act. Exemptions for certain class of drugs. Such exemptions are mentioned in Schedule K. You can remember Schedule K by using a sentence. Which sentence? Kept outside of Act. That is, these drugs are kept outside from the provisions of Act. Kept starts with K. From that K, you can correlate with the Schedule K. Schedule K is the drugs and exemption criteria. Drugs which are kept outside of the Act. That kept helped you to remember about Schedule K. Now Schedule L. Schedule L is also omitted. Now Schedule L1. L1 states about the good laboratory practices and requirements of the premises and equipments. That is, Schedule L is related to lab. Good laboratory practices and requirements for a laboratory is mentioned in Schedule L1. Just remember a word, L1 lab. This is the name of a lab, L1 lab, from which you remember L1 is related to lab. Now moving to Schedule M. Schedule M is for good manufacturing practices for pharmaceutical production firms. M is for make most perfectly. Make most perfectly helps you to remember about good manufacturing practices. M is for make most perfectly. M helps you to remember about Schedule M. subpart of Schedule M. Subparts are 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E and 1F. You remember a word POTMA. P-O-O-T-M-A. POTMA. P-O, that is parenteral and ophthalmic, are in 1A. Now, second and third O are for 1B and 1C respectively. That is, second O is oral solid, which is in 1B, and liquid comes after solid. So, third O is for oral liquid, which is in 1C, and T, that is T of POTMA. T is for 1D. T and D sounds similar, and POTMA. Finally, there is MA. M is for metered dose inhalers, which are in part 1E. Then, finally, POTMA. Finally, A, which is in part 1F. A is for active pharmaceutical ingredient. So, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E and 1F can be remembered by using the word POTMA. P-O-O-T-M-A. P-O-O-O, that is 3 O's, and T-M-A. POTMA. Schedule M1, M2 and M3. These are good manufacturing practices meant for homeopathic preparations, cosmetic preparations and medical devices respectively. That is, M1 is for homeopathic preparations. You see the letter H. Capital H is made up of two ones connected by a small line. So, 1 is for H. M1 is for homeopathic preparations. Now M2. M2 is for cosmetic preparations. You see the letter C. C is for cosmetic. And cosmetic preparations are dealt in M2. You see the letter 2. When you invert C in certain direction, it will look like number 2. When you invert C in opposite direction, it looks like number 2. And Schedule M3 is for medical devices. You invert the letter M in certain direction, you can form the number 3. From the shape of these numbers and letters, you can remember that M1 is for homeopathic preparation, M2 is for cosmetic preparation, M3 is for medical devices. Now, going to Schedule N. This is a list. List of what? List of minimum equipments needed for the efficient running of a pharmacy. N is for nice. Nice pharmacy. From that word, you can remember that Schedule N is for pharmacy requirements. That is, minimum requirements needed for efficient running of a pharmacy. How can we remember this? Just remember a word, nice pharmacy. Nice starts with a N. N is for Schedule N. Then pharmacy helps you to remember about the minimum requirement for the efficient running of a pharmacy. Now going to Schedule O. Schedule O is related to the standards for disinfectant fluids. Schedule O states the standards for disinfectant fluids. Schedule O has two parts. Part 1, that is provisions applicable to black fluids and white fluids, and Part 2, that is provisions applicable to other disinfectant fluids. Part 1 is for black and white fluids. Part 2 is for other disinfectant fluids. How can we remember? Just imagine the shape of a droplet. The droplet is of the disinfectant droplet. Remember the shape of a disinfectant droplet. Droplet will be always spherical in shape. That spherical shape helps you to remember about the letter O. O is also a spherical shaped letter. From this relation, you can remember that Schedule O is for fluid droplet, that is fluid droplet of a disinfectant. Then you remember that Schedule O is for standards for disinfectant fluids. Now moving to Schedule P. Schedule P states about the life period of drugs. How can we remember? P is for period. From this word, you remember that Schedule P is for life period. P is for period helps you to remember that Schedule P is for life period. Moving to Schedule P1, it is related to pack size of drugs. How can we remember? P1 for pack in one cover. You just pack the materials in one cover. That sentence helps you to remember that P1 is for pack size of the drugs. How can we remember? P1 for pack in one cover. P1 helps you to remember about Schedule P1. Pack helps you to remember that pack size of drugs. Moving to Schedule Q. Q is a list of dye, color and pigments. Simply colors. Q has two parts. Part 1 is the list of colors in cosmetics and soaps. Part 2 is the list of colors in soaps. Part 1 is related to cosmetics and soaps, and Part 2 is related to soaps only. So basically Q schedule states about colors. So we can make a shortcut, QC. This shortcut helps you to remember about Schedule Q. Q is for Schedule Q and C is for colors. Now moving to Schedule R. This schedule states about the standards needed for condoms made up of rubber latex and other mechanical contraceptives. Schedule R states about condoms and contraceptives. You can remember this by remembering a word R for rubber latex. R for rubber latex. Schedule R is for condoms made up of rubber latex. R helps you to remember about Schedule R. Rubber latex helps you to remember about condoms made up of rubber latex. Now moving to Schedule R1. BIS standards are mentioned in R1. BIS for what? BIS for medical devices. BIS means Bureau of Indian Standards. This is an organization. BIS organization makes some standards. Such standards for medical devices are mentioned in R1. Now, moving to Schedule S. This is the standards for cosmetics. How can we remember this? You just remember a word S for stylish. S for stylish. S help you to remember about Schedule S. Stylish helps you to remember about cosmetics. Cosmetics are applied for improving the style. So that stylish helps you to remember about cosmetics. From this trick, you remember that Schedule S is for cosmetics. Now, going to Schedule T. This is the good manufacturing practices for traditional system of medicines like Ayurvedic, Siddha and Unani medicines. A list of good manufacturing practices for Ayurvedic, Siddha and Unani medicine. That's mentioned in Schedule T. How can we remember? You remember a word. T is for traditional. T is for traditional. T helps you to remember about Schedule T. T is for traditional. The word traditional helps you to remember about traditional system of medicine, which are Ayurvedic, Siddha and Unani system. Now about Schedule TA. This is the raw material utilization record form for Ayurveda, Siddha or Unani licensed manufacturing units. Basically, T is related to traditional system. Here TA is related to some forms. Which form? Raw material utilization record form. TA is related to raw material utilization record form that should be maintained in Ayurvedic, Siddha or Unani licensed manufacturing units. Now about Schedule U. This is the particulars shown in manufacturing records of drugs. U is related to the manufacturing records of drugs. U is also related to analytical records, that is, particulars shown in analytical records are mentioned in Schedule U. Now moving to Schedule V. V states about the standards for patent or proprietary medicines. V is for standards for patent or proprietary medicines. You remember a word, V is proprietor, in short VIP. V is proprietor helps you to remember that Schedule V is for proprietary medicines. Now moving to Schedule X. This is very familiar for you. This is a list of habit-forming and narcotic drugs. Schedule X is a list of habit-forming and narcotic drugs. Now Schedule Y. This is the requirements to import or manufacture new drugs for sale or clinical trials. For importing or for manufacturing new drugs, that requirements are stated in Schedule Y. That manufacture or import may be for sale or may be for clinical trials. In both cases, the requirements are mentioned in Schedule Y. That is, import of new drugs, either for sale or for clinical trials, that is mentioned in Schedule Y. Then, manufacture of new drugs, either for sale or clinical trials, that is also mentioned in Schedule Y. You just remember a word clinically. Clinically ends with Y. That means Y is related to clinical trials, from which you remember that these requirements related to clinical trials are mentioned in Schedule Y. Thank you for watching Topic Time.